What happens when two of television's most outspoken personalities find themselves on opposite sides of a debate that nobody saw coming? The tension in the studio was palpable as Joy Behar and Kelly Clarkson locked horns in an unexpected exchange that would go down in daytime television history. Before we dive into the details of this heated moment, and trust me, it's one you'll want to discuss, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below to tell us whose side you're on in this debate. You're going to have strong opinions, that's for sure. The episode started like any other. Kelly Clarkson was on the show to promote her latest album and share her journey in the music industry. The energy in the studio was light and cheerful, with the audience clapping and smiling as the conversation began. But what was meant to be a friendly, light-hearted discussion soon veered into dangerous territory, sparking a debate over the authenticity of vulnerability in the entertainment industry. Joy leaned forward with a curious smile, setting the stage for her first question. So, Kelly, you've been very open about your struggles, your divorce, your experience as a working mom. Do you ever feel like that vulnerability has been weaponized against you in this industry? Kelly smiled, initially at ease with the question. You know, Joy, I think vulnerability is actually my greatest strength. I've built my career on being real with people. When I sing about heartbreak, it's because I've been there. When I talk about the chaos of getting 3 kids ready in the morning, it's because I live it every day. Whoopi nodded approvingly, and Sarah Haynes chimed in, adding a supportive comment about Kelly's relatability. But Joy wasn't satisfied. Her tone sharpened slightly as she leaned in. Right, but here's what I'm getting at, Joy said. There's a difference between being authentic and performing authenticity. In today's world, everyone has a brand. Everyone is selling something. Even vulnerability has become a marketing strategy. The room grew noticeably quieter. Kelly's smile faltered for just a moment before she straightened up in her chair, now visibly taken aback. Wait, are you saying that my pain is just a marketing strategy? Her voice, still controlled, held an edge of defensiveness. Joy, trying to soften the blow, raised her hands in a placating gesture. I'm not saying that about you, Kelly. I'm talking about the industry as a whole. But, let's be honest, you've made millions talking about your divorce on your talk show. You've turned your personal struggles into content. That's just a fact. The other hosts exchanged uncomfortable glances. You could feel the shift in the room. Kelly took a deep breath, her frustration building as she tried to maintain composure. With all due respect, Joy, she said, I think there's a huge difference between exploiting pain and sharing your truth to help others feel less alone. When I talk about my divorce, it's not for ratings. It's because I get thousands of messages from people telling me that hearing my story helped them through their own struggles. Joy quickly interjected. But you do get ratings for it. And you do get paid for those ratings. So, where's the line? Kelly's jaw tightened. The line is intention. The line is authenticity. Just because something is popular doesn't make it fake. Just because I make a living doing something I love doesn't mean my emotions are a performance. Sunny Hostin tried to step in, suggesting that in today's world of social media and constant content creation, the lines have blurred for everyone, not just Kelly. But Kelly wasn't letting this go. She turned back to Joy, locking eyes. No, I want to hear what Joy is actually trying to say, because it sounds like you're suggesting that I'm not genuine, that I'm using my kids, my divorce, my struggles as some kind of act. And if that's what you're saying, then let's talk about it directly. Joy leaned back in her chair, clearly not expecting Kelly to push back so strongly. I'm saying that everyone in entertainment is performing to some degree, Kelly. That's the nature of the business. You're on television right now. You're mic'd up. There are cameras on you. You're presenting a version of yourself. That's all I'm saying. A version of myself? Kelly's voice rose, frustration creeping in. This is who I am, Joy. What you see is what you get. I don't have a television persona that I turn off when I go home. I'm the same woman on my show that I am at my kitchen table. And honestly, I find it really frustrating that because I've been successful at connecting with people honestly, you think that somehow makes it less valid. The studio fell completely silent. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was deeply personal, and everyone could feel it. Joy didn't back down. Kelly, I've been in this business for over 40 years. I've seen every trend, every shift, every new wave of entertainers. And I'm telling you, what you call authenticity, the industry calls content. Your authenticity is your brand. That's not a criticism, that's just reality. Kelly shook her head, her voice firm. You're wrong. My authenticity is not my brand. My brand might include my authenticity, but they're not the same thing. I was authentic before I was famous, and I'll be authentic after I'm not famous anymore. This is who I am. Joy pushed further. But you are famous, Kelly. You make choices every day about what to share and what not to share. That's curation. That's creating a narrative, Kelly fired back. Of course I make choices. Everyone does. But the things I do share are real. The emotions are real. The struggles are real. Just because I have a platform doesn't make my life a performance. Whoopi finally stepped in, her voice calm but firm. Ladies, I think we're talking about two different things here. Joy wasn't ready to back down. Kelly, answer me this. When you're going through something difficult, when do you decide to share it? Is it in the moment, or is it after you've processed it and figured out how to frame it for your audience? Kelly paused, and in that moment, the room could feel the weight of the question. That's not fair, Kelly responded, voice steady but emotionally charged. Why isn't it fair? Joy pressed. Because you're trying to trap me, Kelly answered, the emotion now clear in her voice. If I say I share things in real time, you'll accuse me of being impulsive. If I say I process first, you'll say I'm calculating. There's no right answer, because you've already decided what you think about me. The tension in the room was palpable. Joy straightened in her chair, eyes narrowing. This was no longer just an interview. This was a collision of ideologies. I haven't decided anything about you, Kelly. I'm asking legitimate questions about how modern celebrity works. If you can't handle that conversation, then maybe you're not as comfortable with authenticity as you claim to be. That statement hit like a bombshell. Kelly's face flushed with a mix of disbelief and frustration. For a moment, it looked like she might stand up and walk off the set. But instead, she leaned forward, her voice steady, but now carrying a weight of authority that hadn't been there before. You know what, Joy? You want to talk about performing? Let's talk about performing, Kelly began, her tone measured and deliberate. You sit here every day and play the role of the provocateur, the one who asks the tough questions, who isn't afraid to push buttons. But that's a role too, isn't it? That's your brand. The edgy one. The controversial one. So before you start dissecting my authenticity, maybe look at your own. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. No one had expected Kelly Clarkson, America's sweetheart, to hit back with that level of directness. Joy's eyes widened. Her lips curled into a tight smile, though it was clear she wasn't pleased with the sudden shift. Oh, so now we're turning this around on me? She said, trying to regain control. I'm just following your logic, Kelly responded, her voice now gaining strength. If my vulnerability is a marketing strategy, then your confrontational style is too. If I'm performing authenticity, then you're performing toughness. We're both doing our jobs, Joy. The difference is, I'm not sitting here questioning your motives or your integrity. Sunny tried to step in to mediate, her voice soft but firm. I think we're all just trying to have a conversation about the complexity of being in the public eye. But Joy was locked in now, eyes firmly fixed on Kelly. My confrontational style, as you call it, is about holding people accountable. It's about not letting celebrities come on television and sell us fairy tales without being challenged. That's journalism. What you do is entertainment. Kelly couldn't hold back a short, incredulous laugh. What I do is entertainment? Joy, this is The View. This is a daytime talk show. You're not doing investigative journalism here. You're giving opinions, having conversations, just like me, just like every other talk show host out there. There's a difference, Joy countered, her voice rising slightly. We talk about politics, real issues that affect people's lives. You talk about feelings. The condescension in the last word was unmistakable, and Kelly's frustration turned into something deeper. Anger. Her eyes narrowed as she shot back. I talk about feelings. She paused, her words now deliberate and slow. You know what, Joy? Feelings are real issues. When someone is struggling with depression, that's a real issue. When someone is going through a divorce and doesn't know how they're going to co-parent effectively, that's a real issue. The things I talk about matter, and they matter to people who are going through those struggles. The room fell silent, everyone sensing that the conversation had shifted from a disagreement to a deeply personal confrontation. Don't you dare try to minimize the importance of what I do, Kelly continued, her voice steady but undeniably firm. If you're going to sit there and criticize me for opening up about my life, maybe you should think about why I do it. It's not for ratings. It's because people need to hear these stories. They need to know they're not alone in what they're going through. Joy seemed momentarily taken aback by the depth of Kelly's words, but she didn't back down. You say it's about helping people, but it's still part of the machine, Kelly. It's all part of the entertainment industry, an industry that thrives on vulnerability, pain, and struggles. That's the reality. And I'll own that reality, Kelly shot back. But I'm not pretending. I'm not performing for you or for anyone else. I'm being real. I've built a career on that, and I'm not ashamed of it. But maybe you should think about the boundaries you're crossing when you keep pushing people to spill their lives out for your audience. The tension between them was thick, and the air in the room had shifted from a light-hearted exchange to an all-out clash of ideologies. The other hosts shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to intervene. They were witnessing something unique, a confrontation that transcended the usual celebrity interview, where professional boundaries and personal truths collided. As the interview continued, Joy tried once again to assert control, but Kelly had clearly set her own boundaries. This wasn't about entertainment or performance anymore. It was about authenticity, about people respecting one another's privacy and vulnerability, even in the face of fame and public scrutiny. The audience, who had been with them from the beginning, now found themselves drawn into this raw, unfiltered moment. It was no longer just about celebrities and their public personas. It was about real, human conversations, and the sometimes uncomfortable but necessary discussions that need to be had. The shift in the room was undeniable. It was no longer about what was being said, but how it was being said. With every word, Kelly had turned the tables, and in doing so, she had redefined what it meant to be authentic in a world that often demands more than what people are willing to give. When someone's dealing with body image issues because society's standards are impossible, that's a real issue. Just because I'm not talking about congressional bills doesn't mean what I do doesn't matter. Alyssa Farah Griffin tried to jump in, sensing the tension building. Kelly makes a great point. Mental health and personal struggles are incredibly important topics, she said, clearly trying to de-escalate the situation. But Joy wasn't having it. Of course, they're important, but let's not pretend that discussing your personal life on television is the same as advocacy. Real advocacy happens off-camera in communities with actual change-making work. Kelly's patience clearly snapped. Are you serious right now? I've raised millions of dollars for charity. I've worked with countless organizations, supporting children, supporting education, helping people in crisis. I don't need to justify my impact to you or anyone else. And frankly, Joy, this attitude of yours, this gatekeeping about what counts as meaningful work, it's the kind of elitism that turns people off. Elitism? Joy's voice pitched higher, her disbelief palpable. I'm the elitist? You're the one with the multi-million-dollar talk show deal, the mansion, the lifestyle brand. Don't talk to me about elitism. Having success doesn't make someone an elitist, Kelly fired back, unflinching. Being dismissive of other people's work because it doesn't fit your narrow definition of important, that's elitism. Looking down on emotional vulnerability and calling it just feelings, that's elitism. Kelly's voice gained strength, her frustration evident. You want to know what I think, Joy? I think you're uncomfortable with the fact that I've built something successful by being open and honest, because it challenges your idea of how things should work. Whoopi tried to intervene, raising her voice to regain control of the segment. Okay, ladies, I think we need to take a breath here, she began, but Joy wasn't ready to back down. You haven't challenged anything, Kelly. You've just figured out how to monetize relatability. Good for you. But don't stand here and act like you're some kind of revolutionary because you cry on television and people watch it. The studio audience let out a collective gasp. Several people murmured in disapproval, and even the other hosts looked stunned by the harshness of Joy's words. Kelly stood up, her body language radiating that she was done with the conversation. But she didn't storm off. Instead, she stood tall and fixed her gaze on Joy with an intensity that commanded the room. You know what's really sad about this, Joy? Kelly said, her voice unwavering. I came here today excited to talk to you. I respect your career. I respect what you've built. I grew up watching you, thinking you were this fearless woman who spoke truth to power. But right now, all I see is someone so caught up in being the toughest person in the room that you've forgotten how to have empathy. You've forgotten what it means to actually connect with people instead of just performing connection. Joy stood up too, matching Kelly's intensity. Don't you dare psychoanalyze me. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through or what I stand for. You're right. I don't know you, Kelly said, her voice now softening with emotion. But I know what you've shown me today. And what you've shown me is someone who would rather tear another woman down than have an actual conversation. Someone who would rather win an argument than find common ground. And honestly, that breaks my heart, because I thought you were better than this. The studio fell silent. Joy's face turned red, her hands trembling slightly. The other hosts sat frozen, unsure of how to intervene in what had become an intensely personal confrontation. Joy took a step closer to the table, her voice shaking with anger. You think you can come on my show and lecture me about how to treat people? You think you can stand there with your perfect image and your perfectly packaged pain and tell me I'm the one performing? I have been fighting for women's rights, for social justice, for real causes since before you were born. Kelly, don't you dare suggest that what I do doesn't have empathy at its core, Joy snapped. Then show it, Kelly challenged, her tears now visible, though her voice remained strong. Show empathy right now. Admit that maybe you came at this conversation with some preconceived notions about me. Admit that maybe you've been harsh. Because right now, Joy, you're proving every point I've made. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but for the first time since the argument began, she seemed at a loss for words. She looked to the other hosts, then at the audience, then back at Kelly. The cameras captured every moment of her internal struggle. The conflict was evident on her face as she wrestled with how to respond. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter, but no less intense. You want me to admit I've been harsh? Fine, I've been harsh. That's who I am. I don't do soft. I don't do gentle. That's not my style, and it never has been. But don't mistake directness for lack of empathy. Don't mistake tough questions for cruelty. But it was cruel, Joy, Kelly said softly, wiping away her tears. Whether you meant it to be or not, it was cruel. You questioned my integrity. You dismissed my work. You belittled my connection with my audience. That's not tough questions. That's just being mean. Joy flinched at the word mean, and something in her expression shifted. The word hung in the air, a weight neither of them could escape. Joy Behar, who had built a career on being sharp, witty, and unafraid, had just been called mean to her face on live television. For a brief moment, vulnerability flashed across her features before the armor went back up. Mean, Joy repeated, her voice hollow. That's what you think of me? Kelly didn't back down. Yes, that's exactly what I think. Because you haven't just disagreed with me, Joy. You've attacked who I am as a person. You've suggested that my emotions aren't real, that my connection with people is fake, that everything I've built is just manipulation. How else would you describe that except mean? Whoopi stood up now too, her voice firm. Okay, I think we need to stop this right now. This has gone too far. But Joy held up her hand, stopping Whoopi mid-sentence. The look on Joy's face was complex, a mixture of anger, defensiveness, and something else, something that looked almost like shame. She stared at Kelly for a long moment, and the entire studio waited to see what would happen next. You're right, Joy said finally, and the shock in the room was palpable. You're right. I was mean. Kelly's eyes widened, clearly not expecting that admission. Joy continued, her voice rough with emotion. I came into this conversation with an agenda. I wanted to make a point about celebrity culture and authenticity, and I used you to make that point without really considering you as a person. That was wrong. The other hosts exchanged glances of disbelief. This wasn't how anyone expected this to go. Kelly remained standing, her arms crossed, still guarded but listening. But here's the thing, Kelly, Joy went on, sitting back down heavily in her chair. You're not wrong about me either. I do perform toughness. I do use confrontation as my brand. And maybe somewhere along the way, I forgot that there's a difference between asking tough questions and just being tough for the sake of it.